Taehyung stared at the message on his phone for almost 10 minutes. Jungkook, I found something that belongs to you. Can we meet? Just once. His thumb hovered over the screen. He should say no. He was engaged. He was building a future with Jimin. He had promised himself that Ji and Jungkook would stay in the past. And yet, 3 years of silence hadn't erased the effect Jungkook still had on him. Before he could stop himself, Taehyung typed, Taehyung, tomorrow, 1 hour, that's all. The reply came instantly, Jungkook, thank you. Taehyung immediately regretted it, because for the first time since the divorce, he was deliberately choosing to see his ex-husband, and his fiancé had no idea. The next evening arrived faster than he wanted. Jimin was sitting on the couch when Taehyung walked out of the bedroom. You look nice, Jimin said with a smile. Taehyung froze. He had changed clothes 3 times, without realizing it, the same way he used to when Jungkook took him on dates. The realization made guilt crash into him. Just meeting a friend, Taehyung lied. Jimin nodded easily. Don't stay out too late. The trust in Jimin's eyes almost made Taehyung cancel everything. Almost. The cafe overlooked the river. It was quiet, warm, familiar. Too familiar, because it was the same place where Jungkook had proposed 6 years ago. Taehyung's heart dropped when he noticed him. Jungkook was already there, waiting. His dark coat hung perfectly over broad shoulders. His hands were tucked into his pockets. But his eyes looked nervous. Taehyung couldn't remember the last time he had seen Jungkook nervous. For a second neither of them spoke. Then Jungkook smiled softly. Hi, such a simple word. Yet it carried 3 years of pain. Taehyung sat down. What did you want to show me? Jungkook slid a small box across the table. Taehyung opened it. His breath caught instantly. Inside was a silver key. The key to their first apartment. The apartment they bought together after getting married. I found it while cleaning, Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung couldn't look away. Memories crashed into him. Movie nights, midnight takeout, lazy Sunday mornings. The place where they had built their entire life together. The place where everything fell apart. I thought you threw this away. Jungkook laughed bitterly. I couldn't throw away anything that reminded me of you. The confession hit harder than expected, because Taehyung knew exactly what that felt like. He still had old photos hidden inside a drawer. He still remembered Jungkook's coffee order. He still knew the sound of his footsteps. Some loves refused to die, no matter how much time passed. An hour turned into 2, then 3. They talked, really talked. For the first time in years. No fighting, no accusations, no walls, just honesty. Jungkook told him about therapy, about panic attacks, about sitting alone in a penthouse that felt emptier than their tiny first apartment. And Taehyung told him about learning how to survive after the divorce, about nights spent crying himself to sleep, about rebuilding a heart Jungkook had shattered. At one point Jungkook looked down. His voice became almost a whisper. I hated myself. Taehyung blinked. What? Jungkook swallowed hard. For what I did to you. Silence. Then, you deserved better. The words sounded genuine, painfully genuine, and somehow that hurt even more. Because for years Taehyung had imagined Jungkook moving on, being happy, not caring. But the broken man sitting across from him looked anything but happy. When they finally left the cafe, rain was falling. Soft, cold. The city lights reflected against the wet pavement. Neither of them seemed eager to say goodbye. Jungkook walked him to his car. Their shoulders occasionally brushed. Each accidental touch felt dangerous. At the driver's door, Taehyung turned toward him. This was a mistake. Jungkook's eyes darkened. You don't mean that. Jungkook, you smiled tonight. Taehyung froze. Jungkook stepped closer. Not enough to touch. Just enough to make Taehyung's heartbeat lose control. You smiled at me for the first time in 3 years. The truth hurt. Because he had. Without even noticing, Jungkook looked at him like a man staring at sunlight after years of darkness. Hope. Real hope. For the first time. And that terrified Taehyung. Because hope could destroy people. He knew that better than anyone. When Taehyung arrived home, the apartment was dark. Except for the kitchen light, Jaemin was awake, waiting. The sight made guilt slam into him so hard he nearly staggered. Jaemin smiled sleepily. Hey, Taehyung forced a smile back. Hey, how was your night? His throat tightened. One question, one simple question, and suddenly lying felt impossible, because tonight wasn't just a meeting. Tonight had changed something. The wall around his heart had cracked, and Jungkook was already slipping through. Taehyung began, then stopped. Jaemin tilted his head, concern appearing in his eyes. Taehyung looked away, unable to meet his gaze, because for the first time since accepting Jaemin's proposal, he wasn't sure who his heart belonged to anymore, and that realization scared him more than anything. Taehyung barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jungkook standing in the rain. The way he had looked at him, the way he had said, "You smiled at me for the first time in 3 years." It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. Far more than Taehyung wanted to admit. The next morning, he woke up tangled in guilt. Jaemin was already in the kitchen making breakfast. The smell of coffee filled the apartment. For a moment, everything looked peaceful, normal, safe. The future he was supposed to want. Morning, sleep ahead. Jaemin smiled as he placed a plate in front of him. Taehyung forced a smile. Morning. Jaemin sat across from him, watching him, not suspiciously, just carefully, like someone trying to understand a puzzle. You seem distracted lately. Taehyung looked down. I'm fine. Jaemin didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stirred his coffee quietly. Then he asked the question that made Taehyung's stomach drop. Was it really a friend you met yesterday? The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, too silent. Taehyung's heart started pounding. He hated lying, especially to Jaemin, because Jaemin had never lied to him, never hurt him, never abandoned him. But the truth felt even worse. Yeah, the lie came out weak, unconvincing. Jaemin noticed. Taehyung knew he did, but Jaemin simply nodded. Okay, that was all. No argument, no accusation, just one word, and somehow that hurt more. The following week became torture. Taehyung tried creating distance. He ignored Jungkook's messages, focused on work, focused on wedding planning, focused on Jaemin. But Jungkook seemed to be everywhere. Every song, every memory, every quiet moment. It was exhausting. One evening, Taehyung received a package at work. No sender name. He already knew who it was from. Inside was an old photograph. Their wedding day. Jungkook was smiling so hard his eyes had disappeared. Taehyung was laughing beside him. They looked ridiculously happy. On the back, a handwritten note. I miss the version of us that believed we'd grow old together. Taehyung immediately shoved the photo into his desk drawer, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, he finally called Jungkook. The phone rang once, twice. Then Jungkook answered instantly, as if he had been waiting. Just hearing his voice made Taehyung close his eyes. Stop sending things. Silence. Then a quiet okay. Taehyung wasn't expecting that. No argument, no persuasion, just acceptance. It somehow made him even more frustrated. Why are you making this so difficult? His voice cracked. Jungkook exhaled slowly. I'm not trying to. It feels like you are. A long pause followed. Then Jungkook spoke softly. Because I don't know how to stop loving you. The honesty hit like a punch. Taehyung couldn't breathe for a second. I should go. His voice stopped him. I meant what I said. Taehyung gripped the phone tighter. About what? That if you choose Jaemin, I'll walk away. Silence. Then Jungkook added, but don't choose him because you're afraid of me. The line went dead, leaving Taehyung alone with thoughts he didn't want. 3 days later, everything became worse. Jaemin found the necklace. The silver necklace. The one Jungkook had returned. The one Taehyung secretly wore every day. Taehyung stepped out of the shower and froze. Jaemin was standing beside the bed, the necklace dangling from his fingers. The color had completely drained from his face. Neither of them spoke. Not immediately. The silence was unbearable. Finally, Jaemin looked up. Where did this come from? Taehyung's chest tightened. His mind scrambled for excuses. But he couldn't lie anymore. Not this time. It belonged to Jungkook. The words shattered the room. Jaemin's expression changed instantly. Not anger. Not jealousy. Something worse. Heartbreak. You met him. It wasn't a question. Taehyung couldn't answer. Because silence was answer enough. Jaemin laughed softly. A broken sound. Oh. The single word carried more pain than shouting ever could. For several moments neither moved. Then Jaemin carefully placed the necklace on the bed. His hands were shaking. How long? His voice barely rose above a whisper. Taehyung felt sick. A few weeks. Jaemin closed his eyes, as if physically trying to absorb the blow. A few weeks. He repeated it slowly, like he couldn't believe it. While we were planning our wedding. Taehyung lowered his head. Guilt crushed him. Jaemin, do you still love him? The question froze everything. The air, the room, his heartbeat, everything. Jaemin stared directly at him, waiting, needing the truth. Maybe for the first time, Taehyung opened his mouth, then closed it again, because he didn't know how to answer, or maybe, because he did, and he was terrified of saying it out loud. Jaemin's eyes slowly filled with tears. The silence told him everything. Oh my God. His voice broke. You do. Taehyung felt his own eyes sting. It's complicated. No. Jaemin shook his head, pain flashing across his face. It's actually very simple. The words landed like knives. If you were completely over him, Jaemin's voice cracked, we wouldn't be having this conversation. For the first time since Jungkook returned, Taehyung truly understood the damage being done. Not just to himself, not just to Jungkook, but to the man standing in front of him. The man who had loved him honestly. The man who deserved certainty, not confusion, not leftovers, not half a heart. Jaemin wiped at his eyes, then gave a sad smile, one that broke Taehyung's heart. I think you need to figure out who you love. And for the first time, Taehyung realized he might lose everything before he found the answer. The apartment was silent, painfully silent. Taehyung stood frozen beside the bed while Jaemin grabbed his car keys from the kitchen counter. The silver necklace still lay between them, a tiny piece of metal that had somehow destroyed everything. Jaemin, his voice sounded small, broken. Jaemin stopped near the front door but didn't turn around. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Jaemin laughed softly, a sad, exhausted laugh. You know what hurts the most? Taehyung felt his stomach twist. It's not that you still love him. Jaemin finally turned around. His eyes were red, filled with heartbreak. It's that I think you've loved him this entire time. The words struck harder than any accusation, because they were true. A truth Taehyung had spent 3 years trying to bury. Jaemin swallowed hard. I think a part of you never came back from that divorce. The front door opened, then closed. And just like that, Jaemin was gone. The moment the apartment fell silent again, Taehyung collapsed. His knees hit the floor. A sob ripped from his chest before he could stop it. Everything hurt. His chest, his throat, his heart, especially his heart. Because Jaemin wasn't wrong. No matter how hard he tried to deny it. No matter how much he wanted to move on. A part of him had always belonged to Jungkook. And maybe it always would. Meanwhile, across the city, Jungkook sat alone in his office. The clock read 11:47 p.m., but he wasn't working. The laptop sat untouched. His attention remained fixed on his phone, waiting, hoping. Every vibration made his heart jump, only to crash again. Nothing. For weeks he had forced himself to be patient, to give Taehyung space, to respect his choice. But tonight felt different. Something felt wrong. Then his phone finally lit up. His breath caught. Taehyung. Jungkook answered before the first ring ended. Silence. Then he heard it. Crying. His heart stopped. Another broken sob. Jungkook was already grabbing his coat. What happened? Still crying. Still silent. Then finally, can you come? The words shattered him. Because for 3 years, Taehyung had never once asked for him. Not once. Until now. 20 minutes later, Jungkook stood outside the apartment building. Rain poured from the dark sky. His pulse raced as he entered the elevator. Every floor felt too slow, Too far. Too long. The moment the doors opened, he saw him. Taehyung sat on the floor beside the couch, eyes swollen, face stained with tears, looking completely broken. Jungkook's chest physically hurt. "Tae," the nickname came out as a whisper. Taehyung looked up. The second their eyes met, whatever strength he had left disappeared. He stood abruptly, then crossed the room, straight into Jungkook's arms. For a moment neither moved, neither spoke. Jungkook simply held him, tightly, like he was afraid Taehyung would disappear. Taehyung buried his face against Jungkook's chest, crying harder than before, and Jungkook let him. No questions, no pressure, just quiet comfort. After several minutes, Taehyung finally whispered, "Jaemin knows." Jungkook closed his eyes, a complicated ache settling inside him. What happened? He found the necklace. The room fell silent again. Jungkook understood immediately. A deep guilt settled in his stomach. Because despite everything, Jaemin hadn't deserved this. None of it. They eventually moved to the couch. The city lights glowed beyond the windows. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Taehyung stared down at his hands. "I hurt him." His voice cracked. "He loved me." Jungkook's chest tightened. "He still does." The truth hurt. For both of them. Taehyung wiped at his eyes, then whispered something that changed everything. "I hate you." Jungkook froze. Taehyung laughed bitterly, more tears falling. "I hate you for coming back." The words sliced through him, but he stayed silent, because Taehyung wasn't finished. "I hate you because I was finally healing." His breathing became shaky. "I hate you because every time I look at you." His voice broke. "I remember how much I loved you." Jungkook felt tears sting his own eyes. For years he had imagined hearing those words, but not like this. Never like this. The room felt too small, too emotional, too honest. For the first time in years, there were no walls left, no pretending, no running, just truth, raw and painful. Jungkook slowly moved closer, not touching, just enough for Taehyung to know he was there. "I know I don't deserve another chance." His voice was rough, broken, "but if I spend the rest of my life making up for what I did," he swallowed hard, "I'd still do it." Taehyung stared at him, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. The silence stretched. Then finally, very quietly, he asked, "Why didn't you fight for us back then?" Jungkook's face crumpled, years of regret flashing across it. Because this was the question, the one that haunted him every day. And for the first time, he was finally going to tell Taehyung the whole truth. The truth he had hidden for 3 years. The truth that might change everything, or destroy any chance they had left. Jungkook took a shaky breath, then looked directly into Taehyung's eyes, and began to speak.